and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm your host, Zulfi Sheikh, as always, joined by Kyle Ramnarine, where we run it back on this week of Raptors action, go over the roster power rankings, and see the weeks ahead. With that being said, let's run it back. All right, this week, Toronto had 3 games, and one was on the road and 2 were at home. The Raptors began the week against the New York Knicks at MSG. Less than 2 weeks after the Raptors hosted the Knicks and took a 119-106 L, could this time be any different for Toronto? No, the answer was no. In fact, the game was almost identical to the last one. The Raptors kept in it for a chunk of the contest, but eventually couldn't keep up with the strong shooting from the Knicks. 4 Raptors starters scored over 20 points, but it wasn't enough to keep them or their mediocre bench in the game. New York shot 60% from the field and 58% from 3, and last time it was Dante DiVincenzo who was the random bench player to kill the Raps. This week it was Quentin Grimes. The 30-year guard put up a season-high 19 points and 5 of 7 shooting from downtown. Meanwhile, Julius Randle led the way with 34, 8, and 5 as he hit the most ridiculous Randle-esque shots you'll ever see to get his team a 136-130 victory. From there, Toronto returned home for a not-so-common double home set against the Atlanta Hawks, the same Hawks who came into the game with the league's 27th ranked defense, and the Raptors took advantage of that defense all night. All 5 starters scored over 15 points and had their way. OG, Scotty, and Pascal, who had 33, combined for 82 points and 10 made threes. Gary had one of his best games off the bench with 12 points on 4 of 8 shooting from downtown. Meanwhile, Trae Young did do his thing as he finished with an impressive 35 points and 17 assists, but Toronto made life difficult for pretty much every other Atlanta player. In the end, despite a late comeback rally from the Hawks, the Raptors were able to hold on for a 135-128 victory. It snapped a 4-game skid and put Atlanta into a 5-game losing streak. Now, 2 days after that, Toronto took on that same Atlanta team again, and the main question was going to be what adjustments we'd see from both sides. Now, the biggest difference in this game was that Atlanta's defense buckled down a little bit, and more importantly, Toronto's mediocre offense showed back up and came back to life after being on fire the last game. Toronto's 104 points were the fewest by any team against Atlanta this season. Trae Young went off again. He had 38 points and 11 assists. Meanwhile, Bogdan Bogdanovic dropped 20 off the bench. The Raptors made 18 threes in their last matchup against the Hawks. In this one, they made 10. So that was a big difference in this wire-to-wire win for Atlanta. Atlanta outscored Toronto in every single quarter as they cruised to victory. Barnes did lead the Raps in the L with his 23, 8, and 4. He also had a steal and 2 blocks. The Raptors do lose, and Atlanta, like I said, snapped that 5-game losing skid with a 125-104 win. A pretty lackluster week for the Raptors overall, a 1-2 record in that span, and another week with more losses than wins. Now Toronto sits at 10-15, 11th place in the Eastern Conference. And Kyle, I just have one simple question for you. Have you learned anything new about the Raptors after this week?
I don't think we did, honestly. Like, what can we really learn from the Knicks game and the 2 Atlanta Hawks game that we didn't quite know already? You know, Scotty Siakam playing solid this week. Scotty taking another leap as being the best player on the team at the moment. I just think it has to do with so much of the bench, you know, because I'm looking at the bench for all these different games, and we're looking at guys like Gary Trent, and sometimes he's just going out there and he's only scoring less than double-digit points. Chris Boucher, he's going 5 or how many points, you know? So I think, again, we always come back to the discussion of talking about what's going to go on with this team, what's going to happen with this team. And, you know, things have been swirling. The rumor trades have been going about the Pacers are interested. You know, the Kings are interested in Siakam. All these different teams are interested. So I think, like, we got to get something going, because I think there was something with Siakam's contract. Let me see if I can bring it up here for a second, because it's something with that the Raptors have to trade him sooner rather than later, I believe. And
So
I think
it's a December 30th is the date.
Yes,
It's based
yes.
on leverage. If they trade him before December 30th, I believe he's allowed to be extension eligible for up
Yes,
to 4
yes.
years. After December 30th, his extension eligibility would be just 2 years. I personally don't understand the wrinkle as to why. I
Yeah.
obviously know like bird rights play a factor into that. With bird rights, the team that trades for him have the ability to offer him a better deal than other teams. I know that. But in terms of the 2-year versus 4-year extension, I don't necessarily understand.
It's
So,
weird. It's
yeah.
weird because it says so he's eligible for 4-year, 192 million extension with the Raptors until June 30th, 2024. But if he's traded prior to December 30th, Siakam could sign the same 4-year extension 6 months only after being traded, and then he'd be only eligible for a 2-year extension after December 30th for
Yeah.
84 million. So the Raptors got to figure out sooner than later what they want to do with him, if they want to sign him to that extension or if they want to trade him again sooner than later. I know they were trying to work out something with the Kings. They're talking to the Pacers, but I don't know exactly who they would trade. But I'm saying now it's like I think we have a big enough sample size to see that we
Yeah.
can't get much better from this what we currently are. Right now we're a borderline play-in team, maybe not a real contending team. I don't know if
they're
you think
not. They're not even that. They're 11th right now. They're 10 and 15.
it's
They have the
scary.
same record as the Hawks, and they lost to the Hornets not that long ago. Like, what can you really?
We might not even get the free pizza party at this point, bro. Like I don't think like we got that first win against the Hawks, and I was like, okay, maybe we can go back to back. Nah, it wasn't happening. We're not seeing those food. These guys are starving. These brothers are starving for the rest of the season.
Look, I think you're right in that something needs to happen. We keep saying this, something needs to happen, obviously. But in terms of did we learn anything new about the Toronto Raptors? I gotta agree with you too. Not really. I remember I was recapping this first Hawks game for the Raptors for Raptors Republic. And I wrote at the end of that was like, we'll learn, was this just another example of Toronto taking advantage of a mediocre defense or a lackluster opponent? Which, granted, they haven't done it much this season, so it was good to see them do it. Or was it a kind of like a turning point for the Raptors? And we very quickly realized in that second Hawks game that no, it wasn't a turning point. It was just the Raptors were hot one night, and the next night they returned back to normal. And that's really what this Raptors team is. It's very up, it's very down, and there's never going to be a consistent base for you to build around. And that's probably why people like yourselves and others are like, we need to have something happen. We need to move something because it's time to evaluate something new. Like like you said, there's a sample size. We've seen it. It's time to look at a new sample and get some results and outcomes based off of that, because this has kind of shown us everything we're going to see. It's just not going to be consistent, unfortunately. And there's probably a multitude of reasons why. But the easiest and number one thing to point at is the roster construction. So moving on from there, I think my next question I'll ask for you then is I want to flip it a little bit. The Pacers. Obviously a team that has been very interested in the Raptors' wings and OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. If you were one of those two teams, if you were the Pacers, which one of those two players would you kind of want to have more of? So would you rather have OG Anunoby as the wing player who can obviously be a 3-and-D guy at an elite level, or a Pascal Siakam who can be a bit more of an offensive hub and provide you more through the post?
Honestly, I thought about this too, to be honest, because I know they got Sabonis and I know they got like to work well with both Hallie and Sabonis or whatever. It's just like
I guess it's Sabonis. Sabonis got traded for
that's
Hallie.
I'm blanking right now.
Miles Turner.
That's Miles Turner. I'm blanking right now because again just woke up from a nap. But with Miles Turner and Hallie, because I was thinking, do you want somewhat a big kind of like wing-ish in Siakam, or do you want a straight 3-and-D guy with OG? And I was thinking maybe they would probably do better with OG, because we know right now they got the offense, they got the pace and everything. They're probably one of the best pace teams in the NBA. So I think they do well with OG because he can provide that defense and he can hit the shots when needed. He doesn't need to create his own shot out the dribble. Like again, Hallie will make those shots for him, will make his life easier on offense, allow him to focus more on defense. So I think honestly, if you're the Pacers, you go after OG Anunoby. I don't know who exactly we would try to make work for a trade. I don't know who exactly they would give up in return for someone like OG, because we know the Raptors value OG like he's the second coming of Michael Jordan sometimes.
Yeah,
so
you
I don't
have like at least 14 first-round picks. If you don't have 14 picks, you're not going to get OG.
Not getting
Anunoby.
OG. So we know we're not getting Hallie. We know we're probably not getting Miles Turner. I know Miles Turner's name was on the chopping block last season,
Bro,
but
he's been used and abused on the trade deadline. They put his name out there all the time.
That's what I'm saying. But I don't know if they do it this year. I don't know if they would, because again, he's been working so well with Hallie. I don't know if they would. So I don't want to say he's an untouchable, because I saw his name floating in trade rumors like all season last season, but I don't think they give it up for OG. So I don't know who exactly we'd get back. I don't want Buddy Hield Buddy Hield would be nice, but I don't want to give up an OG for him, an OG or Siakam for a Buddy Hield in a trade, because I think we can do more with OG and Siakam. I really get someone like Keegan Murray, for one of these guys.
Yeah, well, like after Keegan Murray dropped like 12 threes, I don't know if he's on the trade block anymore, or if he ever was, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know some Raptors fans had a debate over whether you'd want Keegan Murray or not. And I think the funniest thing I took away from that is people are saying, well, Keegan Murray isn't as good as Pascal Siakam. No, duh. It's a trade package, and it's based around future potential. If you're trading for Keegan Murray, it's not because he's better than Pascal now. You're trading for him because what he can grow into to
in the future.
what he does for this team in terms of needs and in terms of what value and leverage do you have. Is Keegan as good as Pascal? No, but is Pascal an expiring free agent that may return for nothing? Oh, yes. So maybe the best you're gonna get is somebody like that. So you have to think about that too. But in terms of like the Pacers, personally, like I'm in the other side of this. I think Pascal Siakam would fit with this Pacers team, not necessarily in terms of like the skill set he has to offer as like, again, OG's an elite 3-and-D guy that could fit. But I personally think Buddy Hield is off the table in terms of trades anyways for Indiana. He fits so well with Halliburton. You saw him provide that relief and that three-point shooting. He's picked it up defensively, granted not by much because his team is awful defensively altogether. Miles Turner, like you said, for the same reasons, I think he works really well with Halliburton. All of this is building around Tyrese Halliburton. And bringing in a 3-and-D guy is obviously important, and that can be really good to help this team defensively. But I think there's a lot more guys out there who can provide the 3-and-D skill set versus what Pascal has to offer, if that makes sense. Granted, OG does it at a very, very elite level, but replicating that or finding people in the NBA to do that is easier than finding a post hub, like a scorer who has decent defense. Pascal has been known to be a really good defender in the past, and he can take so much relief off of a Halliburton offensively rather. And the thing I like about Pascal's fit with this team is that they're trying to push towards his win now window, and we very much know that he's in that window. And you have guys under cheaper contracts. You have Miles Turner like under contract. You have Halliburton who you just signed to an extension. So bringing in Pascal would basically solidify this core, and it would work in the sense that like Miles Turner is an inside player. Halliburton, pretty much the rest of this team are perimeter players. Having a guy to work through the middle that can kind of take the offense from that aspect is just checking off another box. And I think Pascal does that just about as good as anyone, if not the best in the NBA, especially out of the post. So I think just to fit in that dynamic, I would really like to see him on the Pacers team. And I also said that because I wanted the Raptors keep OG Anunoby. I think OG Anunoby is somebody I think the Raptors should kind of back up the Brinks truck for. And Pascal Siakam can find a new venture, a new journey. And I think doing that with the Pacers would be good. And also just the fact that, like, I want the Pacers players back. Give me Andrew Nembhard, the Canadian from Aurora. Give me Aaron Nesmith. Give me Jarris Walker. Give me Jalen Smith. Like, they have so many young players that I think the Raptors could make good moves with and development with, that I think that Pascal going there and then those guys coming back makes a lot of sense, because I just want OG and Scottie to stay together. I think they're a duo that can build and grow together. So for that reason and for the fit I think I see on the Pacers, I think those two guys would work together really well.
I was gonna say too, like, do you think the Raptors, because I know the Raptors are kind of stingy when it comes to trading their players, so do you think that the Pacers would have to involve someone like a Miles Turner in that trade for them to even consider trading Siakam? Because they're really high on Siakam and OG. They're not just gonna give it up for I'm not gonna say nothing, but I feel like they would want someone like a Miles Turner, because he's still young. He can still grow with Scottie, so I feel like they would want someone like that.
I think if you asked me this before they had traded for or like signed Jakob Poeltl, like a million times, yes. But like, you just gave Jakob Poeltl $20 million a year and you committed to him. You're gonna bring one of them off the bench? I don't really see them both playing together. They're not really gonna space the floor. Although Miles Turner can shoot, so he can space the floor a little bit. He definitely shoots a hell of a lot more than Jakob Poeltl does. But I'd still see them two similar players committing that much money to both those guys. I think obviously most teams would want to have a guy like him involved in a trade, but I just don't know if it makes sense for the Raptors now that Jakob Poeltl is in the situation. So I personally don't think they ask for him too much. I think the Raptors at this point, if they're making a trade of Pascal Siakam, they're kind of finally committing to not necessarily blowing it up and rebuild, but a retool. And to retool, you want young assets or young players and picks. So I don't know if they necessarily like need to have a Miles Turner involved for that one.
I saw people talking about the Raptors trading with the Hawks potentially and secure. If they do trade with the Hawks, I would want them to get DeJounte Murray, because I feel like if you were to potentially trade either OG or Siakam for DeJounte, you can have him start and then slide Dennis to the bench. Would be probably incredible for this team, because you have Dennis can actually help the guys off the bench and lead the bench. But I don't know, like, again, like, if you give up, like, who could we even trade for them to even consider trading DeJounte Murray? I feel like it has to be Siakam in that sense.
Yeah, probably, because the Hawks want Siakam really bad. They've wanted Siakam for a while to pair with Trey. He'd be like a much better John Collins. He's athletic, he can defend, and he has the offensive capability that John Collins never had. But I need to get back to trading for DeJounte Murray. Brother, you talk about this team rebuilding more than anything. Why do you want to trade for DeJounte Murray? That's a win now move, man.
DeJounte Murray and Scottie Barnes. That's the duo right there. But
I'm not saying it's not, but DeJounte Murray isn't like a young gun anymore. He's still not old by any means. I feel like I don't know if that's a rebuilding type of move.
I feel like they could get it done though, because I feel like the Raptors, they're always like it's either because again we don't know what direction they want, but I feel like there are always a few pieces either from not contending immediately but being a good team, or they
Yeah.
choose the entire rebuild direction. So I feel like if you go this direction, I feel like we can start entering that window of being again a better team, a win now team, even with DeJounte Murray. Because I feel like again, few minor tweaks to this roster. Because I don't think the roster is complete like trash. I just feel like we need to have a few kind of move around some pieces, and then we'll be back on track. Because right now it's just like we don't know what we want exactly. But I feel like again, DeJounte Murray, I'm big on that guy. So if we could get him and pair him with Scotty and then move Dennis to the bench, I feel like this team could get it flowing, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be a fun move. I think that Scotty and DeJounte are similar in terms of like very gritty players. They score in less orthodox ways, but they are capable to do a bit of everything. I wouldn't say they're both 3-level scorers, but they have shown that they can, especially Scotty this year, adding the 3-point shooting to his game. So I think it's an interesting prospect. I personally am not sure if that gets them like closer to like contention. But like you said, hey, if they make a couple moves around it, you never know what can happen. But the thing with Toronto is they also don't have a ton of assets to move and retool around it. So the whole point is, I think if you're moving a Pascal, it's to kind of refill the chest with some treasure. So I think that's kind of going to be the priority if they start to make moves. It's like let Scotty develop, keep an OG around him to build, and then let's get some more assets back and have kind of some more in the war chest available to us. So I'm curious to see what happens with all of this. Again, I think we all know something is going to happen. It's not just going to be rotations changing. I know that was an option. Like, hey, let's try some different rotations, see what happens, what comes from it. They tried it against the Hawks game. It didn't really do much. So I think in terms of like being able to spark this team, it's going to have to be some kind of a move. So we'll see what happens. But either way, until then, let's just try to have some fun with it, see what the Raptors can figure out. Hopefully they can come out with a couple more wins, because I don't think they're going to get a bad enough record to keep their pick. Just because the Spurs, the Wizards, and the Pistons exist. Those teams are all very, very bad. So I don't know if the Raptors can out-tank them. So, yeah. Well, in the meantime, that does it for our schedule recap. We're going to move on to our stats leaders now. All right, now after another stretch of hoops, here are your Raptors stats leader. There was a bit of movement in the scoring ladder more than anything else. OG is now back in the top 3. He bumped Schroeder out of the mix after a couple of big games this week. And after nearly a month, Scotty is back above 20 points per game. He obviously had some big outings. Let's see how long he can stay above that threshold. If he can do it for the entire season, it'll be the first time in his career he's an over 20 point per game scorer. So that'll be interesting to see. The assist numbers and rebounding stay pretty much the same. No real change, just a couple dips here or there. But that pretty much does it for your weekly stats leaders. Now we're going to move it on to Kyle and his power rankings. Let's get to it.
All right, so now it's time for this week's power ranking. So going off the last 3 games, I have Scotty Barnes at number 1, Pascal Siakam at number 2, OG Anunoby at number 3, 4, Dennis Schroeder, 5th, Jakob Poeltl, 6, Precious Achiuwa, 7, Malachi Flynn, 8, Gary Trent Jr., 9, Chris Boucher, 10, Grady Dick, 11, Jalen McDaniels, 12, Otto Porter Jr., 13th, Garrett Temple, 14, Christian Coloco, 5th, Thad Young. Now, Zulfi, do you have any questions for me, or have you noticed any big changes?
I think the biggest differences I obviously noticed is like the changes really happened in the middle, which is the bench, right? The bench is going to be the biggest question mark with this team. So seeing guys like Malachi Flynn bump up 2 spots, Gary Trent Jr. go down, I'm not totally surprised given the way the bench has played. I guess like speak to Malachi Flynn. Why did he get a spot like bumped up like 2 spots instead of just 1?
Yeah, so I was knowing for him, and then I was weighing him and Gary Trent Jr. too, because I was looking like, all right, who was playing better, who had more of an impact, and well, I think Flynn has a slight edge over Gary Trent Jr. this past week because again he was playing again slightly better offensively and better on the defensive end. Like even the game he had 0 points, he had 8 assists, so he was still contributing to the team. But then when we see guys like Gary Trent Jr., he's playing heavy minutes. He's playing 20 minutes, 17 minutes, and he's only scoring 4 points, whatever. He's not making any of his shots. He's not really contributing to the team. So at this point, I'm just like, all right, Flynn is starting to actually impact the team a little bit, like slightly, but he's doing more for the team than a guy like Gary Trent Jr. is, especially considering how many minutes each person plays.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I will say the Malachi Flynn agenda is out in full force, and like I'm all for it. I'm good for him. Like people are really supporting him, but it is funny to see just how much like the narrative is supporting him now in terms of like we want to see this guy do well. At least from the Raptors perspective, it seems like they're really making it clear, like, we want this guy to be our backup point guard. We really support him. And I think that's interesting to see because the fan base definitely didn't have that opinion for a long time. And I don't know if you saw the quote from Darko at practice recently where somebody asked him what was the most memorable like conversation with Malachi. And he basically said, like, yeah, when you're smiling, you're a pretty good looking guy, but when you're not, you're kind of ugly. So I thought that was really funny. Darko's always good for a quote.
Yeah.
But it was very clear when Darko came in that he was going to empower Malachi and get him back to enjoying basketball. So I think that's something we're clearly seeing, that Darko's really pushing for Malachi to enjoy the game, and we're seeing benefits. Granted, the benefits have been very marginal. They're happening little by little, but he's still a younger guy, so that's how it's going to go. So that's good to see. And I guess I'll get to a couple other guys later down, but I want to get to Gary Trent Jr. as well. Let me know a bit about like what your thoughts have been on him. I know you mentioned a little bit just the minutes and the performances that he's put up in those minutes, but go into it a bit deeper for me.
You know, again too, because I'm just looking at his performances and like there's some games, yeah, he's shooting decent, but there are other games like we really need him. Like we really need him, and we need him to provide that spark that like we need, not necessarily 3-and-D, but we need someone to space the floor, especially how much struggles this team goes through with the shooting. And I don't know if it's like, should we stick him with the starters? Should we give him a like even bigger role off the bench? It's like I don't know how much more we can give to him, because again, it's like now it's like I don't know where to put him, especially because it would be easier if he was actually, his offense was there. You know, there's some games where he's going crazy and we're like, okay, you know, there's the Gary Trent, we know he hits 1-3, everyone's saying Gary's back, GT3, and they're pointing to their heads. No, like, I'm not falling for this propaganda, bro, when he hits 1-3, because I have flashbacks. But I don't, like, again, I don't know when it comes to him. If he keeps playing like this, I can see him moving lower and lower in the list, because it's like if he was playing only like maybe 10-11 minutes, okay, then I'm not going to give him too much flack. But you're playing 20 minutes a game and you're scoring like 4 points. What do you, we need you in some of these games. We need you against Atlanta. We need you against the Knicks. Like, these are teams that you have to show up against, you know, like we can't have you going missing. And we're already in December. We're about to get through midway through December and you're still struggling to find your offense. So I don't know what has to change. I don't know. It's like you mentioned last week, does he have to be with the starters to be successful? But what happens when he gets older? You know, like you can't always be sticking him with the starters. So again, it's looking right now that we're probably gonna have to move Gary Trent. I don't know what trades they're gonna come up with him for that.
What's his value though?
Exactly.
Like, if you're trading him, like, what is his value? I wouldn't unnecessarily see trade him, because he's also a unrestricted free agent coming up. So like he's gonna be a rental for whatever team trades for him, and he's not playing well right now. So really, what value is there out there to trade him? I don't think there is any.
It's like, do you make the tactical move of sticking him with the starters so he bumps up his numbers to raise his trade value? But that's contingent on his offense magically somewhat returning. So again, they're stuck with Gary Trent, because like all of these guys like Malachi Flynn, Chris Boucher, even though they're not playing the greatest, it's like they're not playing Gary Trent minutes, you know. Like,
so I think with the Malachi and Chris Boucher or these other guys, it's like they're not like going off, but they're doing what you expect of them
to do.
They're giving you what you kind of expect. Malachi Flynn, he's there to kind of commandeer the offense as much as he can. And then Chris Boucher, for example, is going to be a high energy guy. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes it looks awful, but you kind of know it, and that's what he gives you. The thing with Gary Trent Jr. has been like, you expect a bit more from him. You expect him to quite honestly be in like that 6th man of the year conversation at times, because he's just that spark plug off the bench. And you know he has the green light from the front office and from this team to do it. It just hasn't been falling. My biggest concern with Gary has been, I really noticed this in the HAWKS game, the first HAWKS game. And that was the game he actually played well, 12 points, 4 of 8 shooting from 3. Like, he went on a couple, like, I don't want to say he runs by himself, but like he sparked a couple runs, and there was like 2 different timeouts by Atlanta. And the thing that really stuck out to me is when he sat on the bench, he looked stone cold, almost like straight depressed. And I'm not going to say he's depressed. I don't know what's going on in his life, but obviously he's not happy with the way he's performing. But even when he's playing well, it just seems like it's taken such toll on him that it's been so hard that like a 4 of 8 night from 3, 12 points, which again, I think is relatively positive, he doesn't seem happy with, or he doesn't have a reaction to. And I think that's, for me at least, it's concerning, because that indicates almost like the joy of the game is going away from him. How this conversation happened with Malachi, that last season took away the joy from him, and I'm sure it did for a lot of people, because losing sucks. But like Gary has been pinpointed, and granted, like that includes us too. We've been really hard on Gary, and everyone has, and a bit of it is rightfully so because he's paid to perform, and you know the role that he has, you know the responsibility he has on the team, especially with his bench being a bit more lackluster. You need a guy like Gary to perform, but it does really suck to see that it seems like it's taking a toll on him, like beyond just like on the court. It seems like the joy of the game is gone for him, and I really hope that can return. And quite honestly, the easiest way for it to return is for him to get out of this slump. Is it going to happen? I don't know, but I just really hope that he can get out of this funk and get into a groove where you can see him smiling on the court again. You know he has such a swagger to him. You know he has such a personality from his outfits, the way he talks, and you want to see that come back to him in his game. So I'm just really hoping it happens. I at this point, like I think I've said all I can say on Gary Trent Jr. I just really want to see him turn it around.
Yeah, and you know it's probably affecting him like both on and off the court. Like again, like the more you get into the slump and the more his confidence wavers, you could see it translating into the offensive game. You know, every shot he misses is affecting him. Then if that affects him off the court, so like either does he need to just make shots, or do you think he needs a change of scenery? You know, because some players just need a change of scenery.
Well, like I don't know if a change of scenery is going to make much of a difference, because like where is he going to go really other than like a bottom barrel team where his role is going to be exponentially different? Like not really. He's a volume scorer that's likely coming off the bench on most teams. He might start on some, but again, like usually pretty bad teams. Like if he was in Washington or Detroit, he'd probably start, right? And over there, like sure, he's going to be scoring more, but he's probably going to be on higher volume. So really, what difference does that make? So I really don't see his role changing in a lot of places. So I don't know if the change of scenery really changes much. So in that sense, I don't know if that's the case. I just think with him, he just needs to get right and start enjoying the game again and doing the little things. And that's part of it is on the front office and the coaching staff. Like Darko, again, made it a real intentional effort to make the game fun for Malachi again, to give him the opportunities. And I'm not saying Gary hasn't been given that, but he is kind of like the younger brother almost, or like who's like looking at the older brother getting more attention, even though their ages are different. I don't care. I'm just using an analogy. But like I remember when my older brother would get a lot more attention. Sometimes it would rub me the wrong way, and I wanted that attention too. So like if I'm this coaching staff, like hey, give Gary Trent Jr. some attention, give him some love, like let him feel the joy of the game again, and help him be a part of that. I'm not saying they haven't done that. I don't know for sure, but I just think it's super important. And like you said, on and off the court is probably affecting him. He's in a contract year, and he's having one of the worst years of his career. He's probably thinking about that. He's thinking about like the more I continue this, the less dollars I'm getting my next contract, if I'm even getting a next contract. It's very likely he does because he's young and you know what he can offer, but he's probably asking himself these questions and going through it, and that really sucks. So I think it's a really hard toll for somebody to go through. So I'm just really hoping he can turn that around, and I think it should hopefully happen with the Raptors, because when he's on, he's a really positive, impactful player for this team.
And you know, it's like I'm thinking too, it's just like it's hard with the roster construction itself, because when most of the roster has trouble shooting, it's easier to guard a guy like Gary Trent Jr. because I don't have to worry about any other open shooters really. You know, I don't have to, a guy who's either streaky, I can just focus and close in on this one dude. So I feel like if you get other more reliable shooters, it kind of makes his life easier as well. So that could contribute to it as well. But I don't know like what's gonna happen with this team.
Yeah, again, if you're talking about you need to add more shooters to this team, I think like hell yes. Everyone wants more shooters on this team, but that's all. Again, that's not just going to come by us being able to sign players all of a sudden, right? It's going to come down to trading for assets and young players and guys who can shoot, drafting properly. Again, people thought they were addressing the Raptors were addressing that with drafting Grady Dick, and so far it's a work in progress. So it's clearly something they're trying. Hopefully things work out, but my main point of emphasis is just like, I don't want to say lay off Gary. I just think obviously he needs to perform and people are allowed to hold him accountable for that. It's just like, I think we've made our point. We've made our point. Gary's in a slump. He needs to figure it out. I think at this point, it would just do him and everyone a lot better if we're just supporting him now and kind of giving him the same love that Malachi was getting in terms of like him getting back into a rhythm. Because like asking Gary to all of a sudden get back to his peak form when he's in such a major slump, I don't think is realistic or fair. Like it's going to be a gradual thing. It's going to happen over time. You're going to see him have a couple good games, couple bad games, and hopefully he gets back at it. And again, we don't know what injuries or personal things are in play here either. So really, I just think it's time for us to be more supportive than anything. Yeah, so outside of that, I don't really have many other questions. I just want to attack the Jalen McDaniels agenda some more. Grady Dick moved up above him, even though he played one game for the Raptors this week. So, like, talk to me about it. Are you finally listening that Jalen McDaniels is not doing much?
Yes, bro. This guy's not like I was really like Grady only moves up because again, Otto Porter Jr. isn't playing, and Jalen hasn't done anything.
Has he played? I don't think he's played.
This is what I'm saying. So Grady scored like I think he had 3 points in one game. So I was like,
out.
He's done more. He's done more. I've officially got to move this guy Jalen McDaniels down the list.
Hey man, look, Jalen McDaniels, like I think he just has to fight for his life in practice. That's the only way he's gonna get back into his rotation. He needs to get a reputation for himself that he's able to kind of figure it out. Grady Dick, like he did look good in his like couple minutes that he was back with the Raptors. He's gonna be an up and down player this whole season now. I think he's benefiting from the 905, and the 905 are finally getting healthy, which is good to see. But I'm curious to see what that does for Grady Dick as well, because that's going to make a difference for him, right? Like when the 905 are bad and he's one of like 8 players available, it's like, hell, Grady Dick is going to be able to get as much offense as he wants. Versus now when the 905 have a lot of healthy bodies, you just added Jonte Porter, who's going to be somebody to keep an eye on in terms of two-way players. You have Marquise Noel, who's back healthy playing with them, obviously. So you're adding a lot of pieces to this team. They just traded for Drake Jeffries as well, so another guy that's going to be on this 905 team healthy and willing to play. So I'm curious to see how Grady Dick fits with other hungry players who are going to want the offense and want shots. It's not going to be the same case as it was before. So hopefully that can give him even more like of a development kick, and he can get back into this rotation with the Raptors. But I think, the bottom of this bench is bleak, man. I don't know what else to say. Like, there's not really much to offer.
It's not looking too good at this point. Like I honestly, like, you knew me, I was high on Jalen McDaniels to start the season, but it's like I haven't seen enough. Otto Porter Jr., he's not healthy. The rest of those guys,
we haven't seen anything. He hasn't done anything in like 3 weeks.
In the garbage time, give this guy minutes, bro. He will show you what he can do. I am
this guy's giving him the Brian Scalabrine elevator pitch. Like, yo, you don't trust me.
When we're confirmed if we confirm not making the playoffs, put this guy as the starting small forward and let him fly, bro.
Bro, you know how insane that is to say when in the offseason, when we like sign him, it was like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna really add to the depth of this team. It's an X factor signing to have a Jalen McDaniels. And now we're saying give this guy garbage time minutes. What has happened? I think this just shows like how many people were looking at this team with like rose tinted glasses, and just thinking that they were like so much better because like, oh, the vibes are different, the vibes are gone. Like Nick Nurse has moved on, Fred VanVleet have moved on. Like we're bringing in guys who we're gonna play the Raptors way, and we're gonna be scrappy, blah blah blah. And it just made people like completely dismiss the fact that like construction-wise, this roster has many flaws. And now we're seeing it, and now we're talking about Jalen McDaniels is going to be a great player in garbage time.
It's going to be the next KD in garbage time.
Man, damn, bro. That's all I can say. Damn.
The vibes. If I hear the vibes one more time, bro, I'm going to...
Oh, dude. I was in on the vibes conversation, and I think it does play a role into it. But, like, you need to understand that vibes are going to be bad when you're losing and sucking and being crappy. And, like, say what you want about Nick Nurse and Fred VanVleet, but they were being grouchy or whatever the case was because they were trying to win. Nick was riding the stars and like starters because he was trying to win games. That's why he didn't let Malachi Flynn play, whether it made Malachi upset or not. Fred VanVleet was getting on Scotty Barnes because Fred wanted to win now. And he wanted the young player who was making young mistakes to figure it out. So like, the vibes are important, sure, but winning is also important, and winning is going to make the vibes a lot better, and I'm sure everyone can agree with that. So, the vibes conversation, in my opinion, is dead for this season. Like, it's just it's not a thing anymore.
The vibes, bro, winning makes the vibes better. Imagine what it's like in Detroit right now.
The vibes are like 20 feet under the ground. Detroit Pistons, man. And the thing that like is so funny about it, I'm pretty sure, so the record for most consecutive losses is 28. And I'm pretty sure the Raptors are going to be playing the Pistons for that record. At least tying the record or breaking it, one or the other. So it would be the most Raptors thing ever to be part of that.
If they lose to the Pistons, bro, I'm flying out my window. I don't know
it would be history making and the most Raptors thing to happen. Like, that's exactly what this fan base needs. Just more complete mediocrity at the ultimate level.
At that point, bro, I'll storm the front office, bro. I'm like,
oh my god,
I can't let this happen.
I said I'm gonna storm the front office. You're American now. That's your American coming out.
I can't let this happen, bro. If we lose to the Pistons, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm just gonna see me MIA for that entire week.
Oh my god, like, it's just please don't be the team that breaks this streak. Like,
Exactly.
I think everyone, like, as much as we feel bad for the Pistons, we want to see them make history. We want to see the Pistons like have 28 straight losses. Like,
Yeah.
I say this jokingly, but I'm also kind of serious. Where it's like, if you're gonna be bad, be historically bad.
Historically bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
at least you can be in it. And then, yeah, Raptors, be part of making history in the good way, not the boring way. Because if you lose to the Pistons, everyone's gonna be like, "Come on, man, you ruined the fun."
Yeah.
We were all having fun talking about the Pistons. It's the most the Pistons are probably gonna be talked about because they're losing. And if you're the team that finally lets them snap that streak and get a win, no one's gonna like you, Raptors. Come on.
People are finally gonna get their free 5 wings from Wingstop, bro. Like,
oh my god,
I can't handle it, bro. Like those boys, everyone in Detroit's starving right now, bro.
Yeah, they're starving families. You got Flint, Michigan. They don't got clean drinking water.
They don't
you
got the
Wingstop just going out of business now because they can't get people wings. It's crazy out of Detroit.
Like I already have to deal with the Lakers losing to the Spurs, bro. I can't. This is not good for my mental health.
You guys, the Lakers just won the in-season tournament. They're fine.
Yeah, but they lost to the Spurs that were on like what, a 17-game losing streak. I was like, all right, guys.
Yeah,
call some Mickey in-season tournaments.
That is tough. That is a tough look. Oh, well. All right. Well, that does it for our power rankings. I'm glad we got to have a bit of fun talking NBA after it as well. But let us know in the comments what you think. Did Kyle get it right? Is he good to add Grady Dick back into the top 10 and pushmate Jalen McDaniels down? What do you think about Gary Trent Jr.? Do you guys have any advice or thoughts on that situation? Let us know what you think. But that does it for our power rankings. We're going to move on now. All right, and now we get back to another This Week in Raptors history, where we look back in time at some Raptors performances, reminisce, and see what we can remember. And the one we have this week is a lot of fun, so let's get to it. This Week in Raptors history, we take a look at the Bismack Biyombo block party. That's right. Since the Raptors are taking on the Hornets this coming week, I wanted to see a fun performance against Charlotte in the past. And there's very few Raptors who were as fun as Biyombo. On December 17, 2015, the Congolese big man tied his career high with 7 blocks and also grabbed 18 boards in the process, the third most he's had in a game in his career. Now, unfortunately, the Raptors did lose that game, 109-99 to the Hornets, and it was thanks to the backcourt that we all remember. Jeremy Lin and Kemba Walker, yeah, talk about random. They put up 35 and 27 points each. Regardless, Biyombo is a Raptors fave for many thanks to his infectious energy and how much effort he showed out there like he did on that night. Again, 7 blocks, just swatting everything. And since Biyombo did it in 2015, only 2 other Raptors have been able to match that feat of 7 or more blocks in a game. It was JV, Jonas Valanciunas in 2016, and Chris Boucher in 2020. So on this day, let's remember Bismack and all the fun he provided in his short time with the Raptors. It was just one season, but honestly, it felt like a lot more to me, and I'm sure it did for a lot of other people too. So what do you remember about the big man? Was it his huge smile, all the blocks, or probably his awesome plays against LeBron and the Cavs the first time Toronto made it to the Eastern Conference Finals? Sound off in the comments, let us know what you think, but that does it for this week in Raptors history.
All right, now let's look at this week's betting ahead. So last week, where did I go? What did I say? So before I take a look at the schedule for this week, last week I told you to take the money line on the Atlanta Hawks, both games. I know we played the Knicks, Hawks. So what happened? So I was right on the Raptors losing to the Knicks and then was also right on the Raptors beating Atlanta. However, again, Atlanta didn't want to get the Raptors a free pizza party or a one win closer to the pizza party, so they chose to sell me and lost to the Atlanta Hawks. So again, we got 2 dubs, 1 L for the money line that week. So anyways, what's coming up for this week? I have the Raptors, have the Hornets, the Nuggets, the 76ers, and the Jazz. So I say like a medium difficulty tier schedule. For Raptors W's, I think they'll have enough to take down the Hornets. The Nuggets will be a tough loss. 76ers will also be a tough loss because whenever Tyrese sees this team, he sees barbecue chicken. So if you want to bet something, I say bet Tyrese 30 plus points. But I think they'll pull it together and get the W against the Utah Jazz. So now let's get to our Raptors 10K 10-week challenge. So again, to recap last week, I said the Suns would be the Knicks would be a great game to bet on and use these legs for the Raptors. So Scotty 15 plus points, Siakam 15 plus points, and Dennis 10 plus points. So if you did just this parlay, this is probably the must-do parlay. It did hit. We did win the challenge for the 3rd week in a row. Other legs I said to do with Scotty over 1.5 threes, Scotty 6 plus rebounds, and Siakam 6 plus rebounds. So the results for these ones is Scotty did hit the over 1.5 threes. He did grab the 6 rebounds, but however, Siakam did decide to sell us last week when Julius Randle turned into Wilt Chamberlain, and he only grabbed 4 rebounds. So if you did do the the must hit legs parlay for the points, you did win the challenge. But sadly, if you chose the Siakam rebounds, you lost. But going on to week 3 now, if you did win the challenge, we should have about $80 to bet right now. So if you bet the 40 from last week, you'll have the $80. So betting the $80, I would say to bet against the Nuggets, because if they do lose to Charlotte again, they'll have a reason to play harder. They want to secure that W. Or if they do beat Charlotte, they want to continue that winning streak to get their pizza party. So the must legs I would do for this game is Scotty 20 plus points, Siakam 15 plus points, and Dennis 10 plus points. Other legs I would consider is Scotty over 1.5 threes and Scotty 6 plus rebounds. I wouldn't say Siakam rebounds just because of Jokic, just in case, because again, he did struggle with Julius Randle. So mostly the same as usual from last week. So hopefully we continue to get the W's, and we'll see next week how it goes.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Now that does it for us on Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. If you like this and want more content, like always, check out raptorsrepublic.com, and you can always take a subscription, $6 a month, for some exclusive content on there from us and from all the other contributors. But from Zulfi, Shake, and Kyle Ramner, Ryan, that was Run It Back. Enjoy your week, my friends.